What happens when a Hollywood legend walks onto a morning show set expecting a warm and easy talk about his amazing career, only to end up defending his entire legacy against unexpected accusations? The tension that grew between Dick Van Dyke and Michael Strahan became one of the most uncomfortable moments in the history of morning television. What began as a friendly conversation about his latest projects quickly turned into something nobody could have predicted. Before we get into what went down, don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment below sharing your thoughts about this whole situation. The interview started harmlessly. Dick Van Dyke, looking cheerful and lively as always, walked onto the Good Morning America set wearing that famous bright smile. The audience cheered and clapped warmly, and Michael Strahan stood to greet him with what looked like genuine excitement. "Dick Van Dyke, welcome back to Good Morning America," Michael said, shaking his hand firmly. "It's always a pleasure, Michael." "Thank you for having me," Dick replied, sitting down. "I always enjoy coming here. You all treat me so kindly." "We have plenty to talk about today," Michael continued, glancing down at his notes. "You've been in the business for what? Over 7 decades now? That's incredible." "Something like that, yes," Dick laughed. "I stopped counting long ago. When you love what you do, the years just disappear." Michael smiled, but there was something slightly different in his tone, less playful, more serious. "You know, your career has covered so many eras of entertainment, from the golden age of television to modern Hollywood. That gives you a unique point of view on how things have changed." "Oh, absolutely," Dick agreed. "The industry is completely different now than when I started. Technology, storytelling, the way audiences watch, it's all changed so much." "And what about representation?" Michael asked, his tone shifting. "Would you say things have gotten better in that area?" Dick looked a little surprised by the question, but kept his calm. "Well, sure, there's definitely more diversity on screen today than there used to be. I think that's a great thing for everyone." "More diversity, yes," Michael said, leaning forward slightly. "But let me ask you something, Dick. Looking back at your own work, do you ever think about some of the roles you played, roles that maybe weren't really yours to play?" Dick's smile faded just a bit. "I'm not sure what you mean, Michael." "Mary Poppins," Michael said directly. "Your role as Bert. The character was a British chimney sweep, and you played him with that now famous or infamous Cockney accent." Dick's expression tightened slightly. "Michael, I did my best with that accent. I worked with a coach. I practiced a lot. Was it perfect? No. I've said many times it wasn't. But I gave it my honest effort." "That's not really what I'm asking," Michael pressed. "What I mean is, did you ever think that maybe the role should have gone to an actual British actor? Someone who could have done it authentically?" The studio suddenly went quiet. The cheerful atmosphere vanished. Dick shifted slightly in his chair, clearly uncomfortable. "Michael, with all due respect, that was a different time," he said carefully. "Casting decisions were made by the studios, by Walt Disney himself. I was offered the part, and I took it. That's how things worked." "But you had a choice," Michael countered. "You could have said no. You could have suggested someone more fitting. Instead, you took it and delivered an accent that's been joked about for 60 years. Dick's jaw tightened. "Hold on. Are you seriously criticizing me on live television for taking a role in one of the most loved family movies ever made? A film that's brought happiness to generations?" "I'm asking you to think about the impact of that choice," Michael said calmly. "Because while it brought joy to millions, it also showed Hollywood that authenticity didn't matter. That big names mattered more than accuracy." "That's absurd," Dick snapped, his patience thinning. "I was an actor doing my job. Should we erase every film where someone played a character outside their own background? Should we cancel every movie where Americans play Europeans? Where does that thinking end?" "It ends with accountability," Michael replied. "It ends with people admitting when the industry made unfair choices. Hollywood has a long history of taking roles from the people who should have had them and giving them to stars for commercial reasons." "So you think I personally caused that problem?" Dick asked, raising his voice slightly. "I was one actor trying to make a living. I didn't control Hollywood." "But you benefited from it," Michael said. "That's the point. You benefited from a system that favored your fame over fairness. The room was heavy with silence. The crew exchanged nervous looks. "I've spent my life trying to make people happy," Dick said, his voice shaking. "I've worked with people from all backgrounds. I've tried to be a good person and a good artist, and you're sitting here trying to tear that down over a casting choice made 60 years ago." "I'm not tearing anything down," Michael said. "I'm having an honest conversation about choices and how they affect others." "Debated by who?" Dick asked sharply. "By fans who love the movie? Or by critics who need something to complain about because they've run out of real problems?" "By people who care about representation," Michael replied. "By British actors who are tired of seeing Americans tell their stories. By people who want this industry to do better." "Better?" Dick laughed bitterly. "You want to know what better looks like? Better is when a kid from Illinois can work hard, learn his craft, and earn a chance to star in a big movie. That's the American dream. That's what I lived." "But whose dream had to wait for yours to come true?" Michael shot back. "For every role you took, someone else lost their chance." "You act like I stole something," Dick said, his eyes intense. "I auditioned. I was chosen. Walt Disney wanted me. You think I should have said no to him? Walked away out of guilt because I wasn't British enough?" "I'm saying the system was flawed," Michael said calmly. "And people who benefited from that system should recognize it." "Recognize it?" Dick's voice rose again. "What do you want me to say? You want me to apologize for my career? For my success? I won't. I won't apologize for working hard all my life." "No one's asking you to apologize," Michael said. "But you could admit that some chances came to you unfairly." "Unfairly?" Dick shook his head. "I worked for everything I got. I started from nothing. Rejection after rejection. That's not privilege." "Hardship doesn't cancel privilege," Michael replied. "You can struggle and still benefit from being in the right place at the right time." "So now my whole career comes down to demographics?" Dick asked in disbelief. "Nothing I did matters because of some invisible advantage?" "It matters," Michael said quietly. "But it has context. Opportunities weren't fair back then, and they still aren't." Dick took a deep breath. "Michael, I've always tried to help others. I've supported causes. I've worked with all kinds of people. I've tried to use my fame for good. What else do you want?" "I want honesty," Michael said. "About the good and the bad. That's all. Honesty?" Dick laughed coldly. "All right. I'm proud of Mary Poppins. I'm proud of the joy it's given people. And I won't feel ashamed because you think I should." "Even knowing that British actors have criticized it for years?" Michael pressed. "Yes," Dick said. "I've admitted it wasn't perfect, but I gave my best. Maybe people loved it not for the accent but for the heart I put into it." "I'm not saying you're not talented," Michael said, "but talent doesn't excuse everything." "You talk like I hurt someone," Dick said angrily. "I acted in a film. That's all. I didn't harm anyone." "But you took a chance that could have made someone else's career," Michael said. "That matters?" "What matters," Dick replied firmly, "is that I did my job. I showed up every day and gave my all. And by the way, Julie Andrews, who's British, never had a problem with me. We're still friends. Does that not count?" "One person's comfort doesn't make it right," Michael said. "Many people had issues even if some didn't." "So we listen to critics over those who were there?" Dick asked, frustrated. "We ignore the people who actually made the film?" "We listen to everyone," Michael said calmly. "And we learn." "Progress?" Dick said sarcastically. "You call this progress?" "It feels like rewriting history. Like putting an asterisk next to everything I've ever done." "If that asterisk is true, maybe it belongs there," Michael said, and the audience gasped. Dick looked shocked, then angry, then sad. "You really believe my career deserves an asterisk?" "I think every career should be seen in full," Michael said. "The good and the bad. So what do you want me to say?" Dick demanded. "Say the words for me." Michael paused. "I want you to say you understand why some people had issues with your casting. That while you tried your best, maybe someone else should have had the chance. That's all. And if I don't agree?" Dick asked. "Then we disagree," Michael said simply. "But at least we talked about it." "Talked about it?" Dick said. Feels more like you set me up. You lured me here with smiles just to question my entire life's work. My goal is honesty, Michael said, not blind nostalgia. You call it honesty, Dick said, leaning forward. I call it ambush. Your team said this would be a friendly chat about my projects. Nobody said anything about dragging my past through the mud. We